So how do you go about creating a whole new world and setting adventures in it, magical, mystery, fantasy? Well, I decided to speak with Megan Montero, who's a successful author. She loves finding magic in all aspects of her life, and that's why she writes Urban Fantasy and Paranormal. And together we had a conversation this weekend about how she writes, the fantasy worlds that she creates, where the ideas come from, and much more besides. Please welcome Megan Montero. In terms of writing about the topics that you do you have any personal sort of experiences of the paranormal or anything, or do you just write from an imaginative perspective?
I tend to be very intuitive about a lot of things, and I have a lot of very strong instincts about things and people and situations, like things that are going to happen a little bit from now. So I use a lot of my instincts when I'm working and doing all of my stories, but also a lot of it comes from imagination because it does take place in other worlds and in this world. So there's a lot of different elements and aspects that I use to bring it into my writing and make it more interesting and more fun for my readers.
I was reading on your website that you were kind of challenged and started writing as a result of that challenge. You want to get into that a little bit?
Sure. Well, I guess I could start from the beginning. When I was very, very young, I was diagnosed as dyslexic. So I had a very difficult time learning to love to read and love stories and things like that. But I always loved the imagination, and I always loved thinking about different worlds and different things and stuff like that, and really became a very, very much an outlet for me. As I got older, and like things happen, life happens, it becomes very difficult. And I went through a very, very rocky situation in my life, and instead of turning to any kind of destructive outlet, I turned to reading. So I would just sit down, read a book, quiet my mind, and the more I read, the more I felt like how much I would love to do it and how much I would love to write my own world. And it really became a way for me to, express things that were happening in my life, things that were difficult to witness, things that were not so easy to stomach and bear, just as anybody else has trouble in their lives too. It just became a way for me to find peace in a chaotic world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And how do you create another world? Do you plan that, or do you build it progressively? How does that work?
In my situation, I know there's a couple different ways that writers like to approach their worlds and how they build them. In my situation, I'm a very heavy plotter. I plot my world. I think about the rules and how they would work, very much like our own society. There's always rules of conduct and laws and how people are expected to act in certain situations. And when I start to build a different world, I like to apply my own rules, my own elements, and things that I would like to see. Even very, very visually, I like them to be different than the world we live in, so that people can move away from the mundane of everyday life and go into someplace else, a different world, a different realm, and live there. So when I do that, I go into very, very heavy plotting, and I have a lot of notes and binders about the different places that I write about.
And the more books you write, if you're using the same world, does it kind of grow, and do you have to keep consulting back to see to keep the consistency?
Yes, absolutely. So the more books that I write, the bigger the world gets. I started off writing in a very urban fantasy situation where it was a little bit of our world mixed in with a little bit of magic. And as the more books that I write, the more places I write, and the more extensive it gets, and I have to build upon what I've already started with and expand. So yes, it's starting to get very complicated. I'm on my 12th book, I believe, or is it 13? 12 or 13 now. So it is definitely expanding a lot.
Yeah, amongst all the books I've written, I've only written a couple of short novellas, and the first time I wrote it, I had a plot in mind. I had planned it out with my son. He was over from Texas, and we sat in the pub and we mapped out this idea of The Last Observer, my book was called. And then I came home, and over a period of time, I had a crack at writing it. But about halfway through, it just went off in its own direction and surprised me. It wrote itself, and I couldn't believe that all of my notes and all of my best laid plans had just gone out the window at some point, and it ended up somewhere completely different. Does that ever happen to you?
Oh my gosh, all the time. All the time. It's so funny because I also do co-writes with another author, and she calls it, every time I do that, she calls it going full Megan. I just go off the rails and change things, and I don't mean to do it, and it just happens. So yes, it does. It happens to me very, very often, all the time.
How on earth do you write a book with somebody else? I mean, I know I've written books with other people, but on dry topics like hexagrams and magic and stuff like that. How do you write a novel with somebody else? I don't quite get that.
Well, it's really funny because her and I have really been working together for a very long time. We tend to plot our series together, even though we're writing them individually. We tend to work together and talk about plot and outlining because it's always very good to have a sounding board. To somebody say,
Hmm.
does this element work? Like if I kill this person in this book, is it going to still work? Later on. And just very, very good to have that. So it really started off very organically with us just plotting together, working together, and then finally we sat down and we were like, so listen, we should try and write together. And it actually is fairly effortless for us. We sit down, we outline together, we plot together like we normally do, and then we divvy up the chapters, and then we decide who's going to write what chapter. And it's not always in order. Sometimes she'll write chapter 1, I'll write 2, she'll write 5. It depends on the content of each chapter. And then after that, we'll send the pages back and forth and then smooth them out so that the voice all sounds the same. Because if you write, say for example, if she writes chapter 1 and I write chapter 2, sometimes the voice will sound a little bit different because you have different ways of writing.
Right.
But so she writes chapter 1 and then I'll edit chapter 1, and then I'll write chapter 2 and she'll edit chapter 2, so then that way it's very smooth content wise all the way through. And then
Got it.
so it's definitely a very much process of going back and forth a lot, that when we write together, we can write fairly quickly. We can finish our last novel was really huge. It was 120,000 words. It was enormous. And we were able to write it in a month. So it does,
Wow.
yeah, it does help.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was laughing to myself this morning because I was reading your website and looking at your Amazon page and things, and I mean I've written 40-odd books, and I was trying to think what the longest one was, and I can't get past 60,000 words. I just can't do it. Even the novels turned into short novellas because I could not seem to get past 60,000 words. How on earth do you write 120,000 in a month?
Well, I mean, it's split between us. It's only about 60 in a month.
Oh, there you
But
go.
it's really funny because the world that we wrote in, again, it really boils down to like plotting in the worlds and like how they all interact with each other. And our plot line and our worlds are very, very intricate. They they tend to weave into each other a lot, and we hit a lot of different elements. So it tends to extend the story when you have to explain so much, and so much has to happen for the readers. We have a lot of characters and a lot of different scenes and a lot of different places. So like if it's a group of friends, sometimes the group of friends gets split up, and then you have to show what each group is doing, and it really does make the story fuller, but it also makes it a lot longer. So there's a lot of different elements to explain in those.
You talked about killing off characters, and it seems I was seeing that you get quite a lot of reviews, so you must have quite a lot of readers based on that. And do you ever get reader input, like, for goodness sake, do not kill that person off?
Oh yeah. So my Facebook group is a little bit wild. I love my Facebook group. All of my readers are pretty much, a lot of my readers are in there, and they all sometimes I'll get a message like, please, please don't kill this one. Or one time I got a message and said, oh, well, your cliffhanger wasn't that bad this time. And I was like, oh, really? It wasn't. And then in the next book, I just did the most awful cliffhanger that I could possibly think of. so so yes, my readers do affect some of my writing. Sometimes they don't affect the story or the plot lines. Like if I know I'm going to kill someone and the readers don't want me to kill them, they're still going to die. There are some times where I have you know secret characters that they don't expect to be one way, and then I'll hit them with another way, and then I get feedback on that. I really love my readers because they tend to be really, really positive and very supportive of my world. They all, they'll message me, and some of them will be like, "You're so evil, but I love you." And so it's really fun for me. I love it.
I was looking at the Amazon page and you know the reviews, and you get all like consistently good reviews, which is I'm jealous because whatever I do, I seem to have a couple of people out there, and I suspect that one of them, to be honest, I think one of them is another ghost storybook writer. They just give me 1-star reviews, and they always say the same thing: poorly edited and misspelled and all this, and it's just nonsense. I don't know why Amazon even allows them, you know, to write that kind of stuff. I do get some genuine negative reviews, and even Shakespeare. I went and checked. Shakespeare gets negative reviews too, but you don't seem to have that many. What's the secret?
I mean, I guess I'm just lucky. I do get my fair share of negative feedback every once in a while. I stay away from Goodreads. I don't ever go onto Goodreads and look at my reviews because they tend to be a little bit harsh and a little bit
Mm.
like a little bit more of a bit of trollish, you know? So I
Yeah.
stay away from that because I feel like the negative reviews can really affect the way you write and really affect your story. And it shouldn't, you know, like your story is your story and that's how you need to be and that's how you need to write. I'm just really, really lucky that I have a really great fan base and my readers are very loyal. And, you know, on my art team, my review team, I only have about 50 reviewers. So the rest, you know, they all come in and they review, but they'll email me and tell me like I like this, I didn't like this. Like I get very, very honest reviews from them, which is great. Sometimes they give me 3 stars, sometimes they give me 5. I'm just really, really lucky to have a great fan base who happens to just love my books.
Yeah, I can see, and you know, like I said, I'm a tad jealous. I think one of the problems that you don't have and I do is that I tend to be a very eclectic sort of writer. I write one minute I'm doing a ghost story book, the next minute I'm doing a book on magic, real magic, and the next minute I'm writing a book about energy hedge funds for business. You know, so or a book of poetry or something like that. And I think I keep my audience very confused. And I think I don't really ever develop like a following. Whereas I can see that if you write a whole set of books around a particular world and with a particular set of expectations, and you're going to develop a very nice, potentially loyal audience, and that's a good thing. What does magic mean to you? Do you see magic as something that just is in books and movies, or do you think there's real magic?
I think it's real. I think it's real. I think there's too many unexplained things in the world to not believe in something that's a little bit supernatural. You know what I mean? Like there's too many beautiful things around to not think that there's something else at play, and there's too many awful things around to think that there's not something else at play. You know, the world is a very complex and diverse place, and I think that if you limit your mind to not thinking that there might be more, it could become a very, very boring and mundane place to be. But I don't see it that way. I see it in the way that sometimes there are great things that do happen, and there's nothing that can possibly explain it. So, of course, magic.
Yeah, I often tell people that if your life is filled with synchronicities, then you're in the magic. You're experience magical things happening in your life, the more synchronicities that seem to occur in your life.
Right.
And I think those synchronicities sort of act as a guide. And when I start to lose the synchronicities, I start to try to figure out, well, what do I need to adjust to get back into the magic? I also think it's a state of mind. I think you have to be open to it. You have to
I'm
be
a
open and accepting of it.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in like energies. You know what I mean? Positive, negative.
Hmm.
What you're putting out is what you're gonna get back. I'm a firm believer in all of that. Like I think that there is something to, you know, the world and making sure that you're just putting out what you want and just making sure that you're trying to manifest as much as you possibly can to bring positivity into your life. Like I think if you're just negative all the time, then you're going to be surrounded by negative. And it's really hard to maintain that kind of mentality, right? Because every once in a while you get down and you're just like, "Oh, this is awful." But you
Hmm.
have to, you know, you kind of have to like pick yourself back up and use that energy to push yourself in a better direction.
Well, in a way, you are being a magician just by writing, because you're, especially with what you're doing, you're in creating a world. I mean, I'm obviously really familiar with Harry Potter, as are most people. My eldest son, when he was a kid, started reading those and got me hooked, and I ended up reading everything and seeing all the movies and everything. So I know that world pretty well. And the more people that can imagine that world that you create, as a magician, we would think of that as creating a thought form. and a thought form that's given energy because it's focused in on and thought of by many, many people. So the more people that think about your world, the more the more real it becomes.
That's right.
That's so in a sense, as a writer, if you really evoke your reader's imagination, you are also a magician, in my humble opinion. You know, you're creating something that takes shape on the astral plane, I suppose would be the normal way of talking about it, or as a thought form.
I love the thought of that. Yeah, I love that. And I love that, at any given moment, the best compliment that I've ever gotten from a reader is saying that I have taken them out of this world and away from their troubles for a little while and given them a break, because so many other authors have done that for me, and it was really special. And I like the idea of being able to do that for someone else.
Yeah, and I think books that take you off into another world are really helpful. I remember being a teen in England, and my English teacher was a very she was a very old-fashioned sort of lady, very very matronly, very prim proper.
Hmm.
But she was really encouraging people to read, and she caught on that I liked a certain type of book, and so she started to bring me books to read, and they were all similar. They were all like the kid is sick at home from school and bored and blah blah blah, and he's staying with his uncle, and there's a strange picture on the wall, and as he looks into the picture, he suddenly becomes part of the world, goes over the hill, and experiences an adventure in this picture world, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And that was that fantasy, you know, that fantasy world, that fantasy experience, a child having an adult experience in an adult world as well, was very very appealing to me, and I read just about every the Lion, the Witch, and wardrobe stuff, Tolkien, all of that stuff was really appealing to me. I think that genre where you create a world and provide somebody with an experience which is a getaway experience, I wonder how much of it is also based on dream world structures and imaginative, basically waking dreaming, where people are literally sat there awake, but they're actually dreaming and thinking about having an adventure in a strange place with magicians and warlocks and, I don't know, in other worlds, vampires and werewolves and all that kind of stuff. So I think you're kind of reaching into that imaginative sort of world that already exists and plucking something out of it and making it real for so many people. Would you agree with that, or?
I would 100% agree. The first set of books that I ever wrote were from a dream. Actually, actually, that's exactly how it started. I had a dream about this one character, actually, and his name's Mateus, and he is a fallen angel, and he's in my books, and yeah, and he is the one that brought everything here to life. So he is the very first one. He was in the dream, and I was like, I have to write him, and he came to life about 10 years ago. I wrote his book, and it's not published now, but it will be in the future. I have plans for him. So it definitely says something.
Interesting. Do you have vivid dreams?
Oh,
Do you remember your
yes.
dreams?
Yes. Yes. I have very, very vivid dreams. I remember my dreams. Most of the time when I dream something, it does happen like later on. Um,
Right.
yeah, it's a little weird. But yes, I do. I have very, very vivid dreams. And sometimes my characters are in my dreams and sometimes they're not, but I get a lot of ideas from them. So that is very helpful to me.
What kind of magic do you have in your books? I mean, is it like Harry Potter type magic? Is it sort of a ritualized type magic, or is it a natural magic? How do you look at magic in the books?
So in my books, how I have it is I write different species. So I write witches, warlocks,
Right.
vampires, elves.
Yeah.
I write all the different species, and within those species, their magics are broken up into separate categories. So, like for example, if you're a witch, there are 5 separate castes that you could be, and each witch falls into one of those castes.
Yeah.
Same thing with the warlocks. So, like if you're a warlock, you fall into 5 different categories, and one is psychics. I have psychics. I have ones that have like charm speak, where they can influence people with their words. The other one is they can move things with their minds, so they're telekinetic. Another one is a manifester, so she can just manifest anything that can come to her mind, and she's my main character. And then I have warriors. So all of my characters within those two worlds, they break up into 5 separate kinds of magics. And the magics all work differently. Some are very visual, glowing sparkles, clouds, or
Hmm.
smoke, or fire, things like that, so that the reader, when they see them, it's almost like a movie in their mind when they're reading. I want it to all be very visual, very dynamic, so that the pictures are very broad and the strokes are very broad with the imagination for them.
Yeah, it's interesting that you do it that way. You've picked out different strands of. Will tell you, I am a real magician. I practice magic, and I can see that what you've done is picked out various strands. That's very clever, and I did see some of that in what I reviewed over the last couple of weeks. Things like dowsing and looking for energy and playing with tarot cards and stuff like this. So.
I mean, I read tarot cards, and there are a lot of people that do get very, very freaked out when you take them out. They're like, I don't want to do it. I'm like, it's just tarot cards. It's not, you don't have, there's nothing to be afraid of with tarot cards. It's totally fine. So yes, I
Oh,
do.
tarot
I get
cards
that.
are really good. So you do read them? You use them intuitively, or do you have some training in their meanings and things?
I mean, I've read a bunch of books on reading tarot and the different kinds of spreads and what they mean and the
Right.
positions of the cards and how to use them. And a lot of the cards that I use, I do go intuitive. Like when I start flipping them, I'm like, oh, this feels like this feels like this. But I also have read a lot, so I do know the meanings of the cards as well. I'm not great at it. Like, I don't think I'm a professional. Like, I just came back from Salem 2 days ago, and I was in Salem, and I got my cards read a couple times, and I'm not as good as they are, but I do like to. I love to learn and try and do more with them.
Yeah, and they are very good meditation tools as well, by the way. If you
Yes.
if you use a particular card and meditate on that and the symbolism and start to probe the meanings, I think you discover a whole other world
I
of magic.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love tarot cards. I love the crystals. I have a ton. I have like 5 different tarot card decks and a bunch of different crystals and things like that. So I do love that stuff.
Do you ever do any earth magic stuff, which is just basically getting out, maybe exploring? I mean, in your part of the world, maybe not quite so easy, but over here, for example, what I'm doing is visiting old pagan and Christian sites and really trying to explore them in a intuitive way. And it's opened up a whole adventure. In fact, I write quite a lot on my blog about it. Tomorrow I'm off to see if I can find the old capital of Great Moravia, the Slavic capital, which was called Veligrad. And I've done a bit of research, and it sounds very intriguing because this place, there's a little debate as to exactly where it is, but there's a couple of candidates. I intend to visit both and a third possibility tomorrow. But what's really weird is this area back then was actually a desert like the Sahara with sand dunes and everything. And nearby was a small mountain which had mud volcanoes because it was naturally seeping hydrocarbons.
Right.
It was an oil field in the Second World War, not now, and it was naturally seeping hydrocarbons. So at times it would literally explode, be on fire, smoke would be issued. The area nearby is actually called St George's Island because the everybody associated this mud volcano area with a dragon, and
Huh.
and so St George and the Dragon, and so I'm looking forward to it. It should be a real adventure tomorrow. I suspect that it's strong earth energies because dragons are usually associated with strong earth energies, and the
Yes.
St George myth is really not killing a dragon but controlling the earth energies, using the earth energies in the right way. So that's what I've been up to. Do you ever get out and look for earth energies or anything along those lines, or connect with nature?
On occasion I do. I live in a very like my where I live right outside New York City. So
Yeah,
it's a very small town, but it's big city living. So I
yeah.
get away. I like when I get away from here, I do go to places. I was just like I said, I was just in Salem. I'll probably be in New Orleans a little bit later this year, just to
Cool.
explore, feel the energies, feel what they're doing. I love the buzz of the cities and of places like that. I love the
Yeah.
feeling of them. But on occasion, yes, I do go out and walk around, and like if I
So
I go to Pennsylvania, it's very natural out there. It's just all trails and woods and things like that.
that's where you'll find it. And so this is the Salem, the witch Salem.
Yes.
What's there these days? I've never been there. I mean, obviously I lived 20 years in the States. I'm an American citizen, as well as British, but I've never managed to make it there. Is it a fun place to visit?
I go every year actually. Yes, I do. I love going there because it's just different. It's different than any place else around here. I like going because there is a very deep, dark history to that place. It's very haunted. There's a
Yeah.
lot of there's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of spirits there. There's a lot of ghosts there. I mean, if you stay in the Merchant, which is one of the boutique hotels there, that place is very, very haunted. You could feel it when you walk through the door. You know, the Hawthorne Hotel, super haunted. You walk through there and it's just very ominous. So it does have this very cool, very witchy, very ghostly vibe to it. And you know, when you do all the tours at night, they give you a history of things that happened and the way that the trials went. And I always find it very fascinating. It's dark. It's very dark. It's unfortunate what happened to all of those people. Very, very unfortunate, but also kind of fascinating the way it blew out of control, the way that mob mentality worked, the way that
Mm.
people that were searching for natural remedies to everyday things were accused of witchcraft because they figured out a way to make people's lives better, which I thought was very, very
Mm.
indicative of of life in general, you know.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But I do love it there. I love it, and that they have like little shops, and you're really supporting when you're there, like very mom and pop owned shops, like it's shop small there. And they have a lot of great things. They have a lot of good things to look at. They have a lot of good things to learn. The psychics there are amazing. You get some really great readings. I always find it very, very enjoyable. Very enjoyable.
Sounds good. I used to go to the Texas Renaissance Festival, which was set in the middle of the countryside
Mhm.
outside of Houston in a forest, and just all kinds of crafts and trades, and mixed in with psychics and tarot card readers and jousting and the King Arthur theme and medieval theme. Oh, really, really good. Medieval food and beer and wenches and knights walking around, and what do you call them? People playing music, minstrels, wandering minstrels, and all this kind of thing, all dressed up.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
have those here too. They have a big one right outside
yeah,
New York. So yeah.
very, very cool. I miss that. Never seen anything like that this side of the pond. That's for sure. Have you ever seen a ghost? Have you ever had a frightening supernatural experience?
I have, there's always those moments, right, where you see something out of the corner of your eye and you're just like, no, it can't be. But I was staying in the Merchant. I was staying in the Merchant Hotel in Salem, and I knew it was haunted, and I was like, it's gonna be fine. They say it's on the upper floors. It doesn't come to the lower floors. I was on the first floor. It's fine. I was sleeping, and in the middle of the night, this is so bad. Something grabbed me.
Oh yeah,
Had grabbed my leg in the middle of the night and startled me awake, and I was like, well, now I'm not sleeping for the rest of the night. But yes.
that's very interesting. I've actually written a book called Motel Hell myself, which was a collection. I had a very strange experience in a hotel in Rotterdam. As a result of that, I started thinking it'd be neat to write about hotel ghosts. And I have a website where people submit ghost stories, and I had one or two on there, but not enough to really put together a book. So I thought, well, what can I do? And then I had this pretty cool idea. I'd go to TripAdvisor and see if there were any strange write-ups of hotels there. And I found that this was a gold mine of haunted hotel stories. So
Oh yeah.
you would like your story. They would say, I stayed in this at 1 star. I stayed in this hotel in the middle of the night. I heard a noise. The bathroom taps were on. I swear I put them off, and then the TV came on by itself, and then something pulled all the covers off my bed, and so on and so forth. So I've had some very strange experiences in hotels too. Interesting. Have you got then a forward plan for many more books around this world, or are you going to do something different in the future?
Um, so this world, so this world is pretty heavily plotted right now. Right now I'm on my second season, and in my genre, we do them by seasons, kind of like TV seasons, where you write a certain
Yeah.
amount of books for each character, and
So
then you move. It's the same world, different characters. Um, right now I have 5 seasons plotted for this world. I'm
My
finishing
goodness.
up my second, yeah, I'm finishing up my second season. My third season will be out a little bit later on this year. But yeah, I do. I have a very, very extensive plan for them and where they're going and how it ends and who dies and who lives and all of those things. I'm very heavily plotted in that way because if I'm not, then I don't know where I'm going. So it's very hard to decide, and it's also very stressful if you don't know. So yes, but I also do have a couple other side projects. I do have my co-writes with my other co-author, and her and I have 5 seasons planned for that world that we're working on. We just finished our first season. April 1st, the last book came out, and they've been very, very well received. So we're very lucky about that, like that our readers are embracing other worlds that we're writing. It's really, business wise, it's very hard when they love one world so hard that if you write another world, they might not all go to it. So we're very,
Mm.
very lucky in that they did embrace the fact that we did write a world together, and they love it, and they've been very, very, we've been very lucky actually with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, that's the problem I alluded to. I write so many different types of book that it's hard to keep, people don't follow from one genre to another.
Right.
I get letter, I do get some emails sort of saying, when are you going to write another ghost story book? That's what I'm looking for. Well, I kind of write for me, so I write what I want when I want.
Right, right. Well, it's a little bit of a mix of both for me, right? I write what I want when I want, but it's also a business, and I try to keep it very business minded when I'm doing my job. And it is a job. It's how I live. It's how I support myself, my son, things like that.
Yeah.
So I write what I love, which is great, which makes it so much easier. But I also write to make sure that my readers continually, follow me and stay interested and to pick up that next book.
Well, I must say I was looking at the website, and the website's really professional, very impressive. I was quite impressed by that. And also the Facebook page I went and looked at, that's also the same. And I wish I could say that mine was equally so, but it's not. But I do everything myself in my spare time, and I have a full-time job as well. So
Yeah.
I do what I can do.
No, exactly. That's how I started out. I was for a long time, I too am a single parent. So for a very long time, I was working two jobs while I was writing. And so it was like having 3 jobs. It was it was very exhausting. I don't know how I did it, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I just happened to be lucky enough that my readers began to really love my books, and now I can just write full time, which is a blessing. But yeah, so I understand. I understand for the first about 7 years of my career, it was me working 2 jobs and writing at the same time, trying to build my readership and get it going. So I completely understand that struggle.
If people want to find your books or find out more about you, where would they go?
They can hit my website, which is meganmontero.com. Very straightforward. Or you can find me on Amazon. If you just go in the search bar and type in my name, Megan Montero, all of my books should pop up. They are also under series. So if you type in the Royal series, all of them will come up as well. So you should be able to find me in those 2 places.
So thank you for listening to another episode of the Magical World of G. Michael Vasey podcast. I was talking with author Megan Montero. If you'd like to find out more information about Megan, please visit her website at meganmontero.com. Go to Amazon and look for her books. You'll find her in social media like Facebook as well. All of the links are provided in the notes accompanying this podcast below. Once again, thank you for listening. Thanks to Megan for participating. If you like this podcast, please do like it, share it, tell people about it. And for now, this is G. Michael Vasey saying goodbye. And then I